thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Julie Tenner.
And I'm Bridget Wood. And today we're talking about Groundhog Day, because I think all of us get there at some point where we just feel like the four walls are closing in on us. You know, your husband's gone off to work, or, you know, you're just going through the motions, you know, going to your job or doing the school run, and you just feel like you've lost your spark.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I really resonate with this, because there are days when I am just loving the shit out of being a mother, and there are days when my husband kisses everybody goodbye in the morning and I feel like, holy
Take me with you.
Yes. I can't do this again.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like I'm being abandoned or something in this lost void of just having child conversations and looking after people all day. And yet I love it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are days when I hate it.
Yeah.
And so we just want to give voice to that. And I have a few friends that are pregnant at the moment, when you've got up in the morning and you're sick as a dog and you've just vomited all over the floor, and you've got your toddler yelling at you, and your school-age children need lunch boxes packed, and you can't even put your undies on.
Like, I function.
100% get it. And then when you think about, there's so many entrepreneurial mums, right?
Yes.
That are running the side hustle
And they're
on
doing
being
it
a
all.
full-time mum.
Oh, man.
And that is bloody hard, and you and I have talked about that regularly.
Yeah.
And I 100% get it. And you phase in and out of inspiration, and then I haven't got any space for it.
Yes.
And what am I doing with my life? And then you're back in again, and you know. So
And this kind of came up because both of us sort of sat here and gone, I'm really lost my mojo. And I remember Julie saying to me when she kind of landed on the pleasure nutritionist and was so full of inspiration.
I was fiery.
You were just on fire. You were like, oh my God, I've got it. And I remember saying to her, oh, but you know that you can have moments when you're not feeling so inspired.
And I was like, yeah.
Whatever. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing?
I really was. And I think having school holidays, our school kids are about to go back this week when we're recording, and I think just having kids at home all day again has just shifted my mind focus, and I've lost that business mojo, which I'm sure there must be hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurial mums that go through that, surely.
I think it's so normal, but what we do is we compare ourselves to what everybody else is doing.
Yes.
I think, shit, you know, look at them, they've posted on social media 3 times today, and like they're announcing some new course, or, you know, and you're like, damn it, I've done nothing except wash the dishes.
Yes, exactly.
And break up a few fights.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So how do you do it? How do you do it? Oh, how do you do that thing of, it's Groundhog Day, I just don't feel like I can even do this again? And how do you get back in your mojo?
What do you do? I reckon it's really kind of connecting first of all with something that inspires you. Because when things just feel like same old, it's almost like you've forgotten what it is that you need for yourself to feel connected again to what you love. You know, sometimes I could even just be watching a clip on YouTube, like watching an inspiring video and seeing kind of the vastness of learning or, you know, beauty in the world. Just connecting with that can sometimes be really great. You know, reading a chapter of a book that inspires you. I've been reading Thrive by Arianna Huffington, and it's just so great. Like, it's just a really great read. And I don't think I realised how good a read it was. And it's one of those things where, you know, it's 10 o'clock at night, you're dog tired, but you read something and you're like wide awake again. You know, it's just those little things that you can tap into to give yourself a little injection of inspiration.
I've been reading Awakening Shakti, which was a book I wrote off you, which is the same thing. Total gold. I am loving it.
Isn't that awesome?
It's all about invoking each goddess within the Indian mythology, I suppose, and Sanskrit. So that's been really interesting. So saying, yes, okay, so choose something inspirational. Yes, you're right.
And I think, you know, if you're judging harshly being at home with the kids, okay, well, try and flip it around. So what are the benefits of being home with the kids? What can we do together that could be fun, that's a bit different? You know, because I think sometimes Groundhog Day happens when we've kind of lost our creativity or lost our ability to think outside the box.
Or we've just been stuck in the house for too long doing the washing and the cleaning and the cooking, and it's time to shake it up and actually enjoy it. Yeah. So put the pleasure back in. Go outside, go to somewhere you all love and enjoy. I hang out with friends. I speak to friends regularly. If I'm having one of those days, I'm like, I just need a bit of zazzing up and a coffee and a chat, and that gets me back on loving being at home.
You know, changing the environment.
Changing the environment, changing the music. I listen to podcasts that are inspiring. If you don't have time to read a book, you can at least multitask while you're doing whatever and still find that inspiring.
And I think, and also identifying with what the trigger of that sense of Groundhog Day is. Like, you know, if there's continuing trigger, which might be, oh, I feel like I've got nothing done, like, I've got so much to do and this is just the same old stuff happening every day. Well, is there a couple of key things that you could take half an hour, put the kids in front of a movie or give the kids an activity that you could go and do for half an hour that would help you get your self-worth back up a bit? Because that's a classic one where you just, where a to-do list or something that's been hanging over your head for days and days still isn't getting done, which we don't often realise that can eat away at us too and can be contributing to our feeling of, like lacking in motivation and creativity. I think Groundhog Day also happens when you don't have goals and you don't see how what you're doing is linking to that or linking to what your bigger picture is, because sometimes we make the decisions that we make and they're always motivated by some kind of value that we place on them, whether that is taking the time, taking the years out of, a career to be a stay-at-home mum or, putting in the hard yards to get in a startup business so that in 2 years you can quit your corporate job, whatever that is. We have those big aspirational goals, but it's the day-to-day grind that can get in the way of pursuing them and fulfilling them. So I think sometimes coming back to your why is a really big one. And, if that is being at home with your children, then it's connecting with, okay, well, what inspired you to do that? And what is it that you want to give them as a result of that time at home, and finding the spark again. Is it getting to play out in nature with them? Is it being present to their feelings? Is it having the time and space to let them make a complete mess in the kitchen but, learn how to make a cake and clean up after themselves? Is it taking the time to get them to count out money from your wallet and pay for something or teach them how to choose just one thing in a shop and be really confident in their choices? I mean, these are all enormous things that you have as a gift to yourself and your child if you have that time with them that many working parents don't get. So it's about, okay, how can we reconnect with that initial inspiration that inspired me to do what I'm doing now? And even if it's not...
You are just speaking to my heart. I'm loving it. Just keep going. We're at the end of school holidays. I'm loving this. Keep going.
All these ideas. Damn, no time for them anymore. But I think, sometimes we can find ourselves in, if you're listening and saying, well, I didn't choose this. This is not what I wanted. Well, how can you make it what you want? How can you find the gold in what you perceive to be really challenging or really not what you're seeking? Because there's an opportunity for us to turn anything into something beautiful, and that time with our children can be so enriching for both them and us if we can choose a new way of looking at it.
And I also think we often think if we're not enjoying life or we're not living in bliss that we're not on purpose.
Yeah.
And I don't like that philosophy at all, because we are always on purpose. There is always a purpose and a reason for us being where we are. So we're in the right place at the right time for a reason.
Yeah.
So what's the learning right now out of the darkness or out of the light? And I was speaking to a gorgeous friend the other day who is pregnant at the moment and was facing some really deep, dark depression, and she didn't know what to do, and she was really feeling very conflicted and stuck. And she's going, and everyone around me saying I need to get help, and so it must be pretty bad if they're recognising it. And I said to her, but honey, don't look at depression as a hideous problem that you have to get out of.
Yeah.
Because the point is, you've made the classic feminine descent into the depths of the darkness of the underworld, which is where she sheds the shit she can't hold on to anymore. You can't be the same woman you were now to give birth and mother this new person, because every child creates and requires
something has to die
mother,
for creation to happen.
Yes. So what is it that you're being called to die off, to let go, to not hold on to anymore, to shed? What is it that you're letting go of? And that is the purpose and the beauty of depression and the darkness.
Yeah. And what a refreshing way to look at a situation like that when there's so much attitude around that just being wrong or bad, or you needing outside help all
or
the
needing
time,
to numb it or move out of it. But the purpose of the darkness is to descend into the quiet internal world, to reshift almost that sandstorm that's blown up, and we have to really reconfigure who we are, sort out and I don't know, pack away the parts of us that no longer serve us, to be reborn, to have that dust settle in a whole new landscape.
It's a classic way of peeling back the layers, It's
Isn't
a
it?
classic destruction to have the beauty of creation.
Yes. So the fact that you're in Groundhog Day doesn't mean you're not on purpose.
No.
And I do constantly remind myself of that. When I'm feeling that lack of vibe, why am I feeling a lack of vibe? What is the message that it comes with? Because I'm never not on purpose. Is that what you find yourself
Absolutely,
doing?
yeah. And I think it's just questioning, okay, why am I feeling like this? Where's this coming from? What's it trying to tell me? Because those feelings that we have, it's just a perception. And our perceptions are ours and ours alone. They're unique to us. And we're choosing to perceive things in a certain way as a feedback to ourselves to get more on track, get more congruent with what's true for us. All of those things. I think too, we can feel off purpose, or we can feel vulnerable if we find that we're spending more time worrying about the opinions of others, because that's a classic example of when we're kind of off track a bit. We're kind of on someone else's path as opposed to our own.
Or comparing. So maybe just give you a quick spiel on comparing too. That we're, what do you call it when we're injecting other people's?
Yeah, injecting other people's values. And whenever you do that, whenever you start to think about,
I should be more like.
Yeah, I should be more like that, or you start to internalise what you think that they would think of a situation. In doing that, you're kind of dulling your own light, dulling your own voice. And there's a point at which the real you will shed that, because you can't continue to do that. You'll know this yourself if you've been through times where perhaps it's been with a new partner, and you've kind of decided, oh, they love, X, Y, Z, I'll love that too. And it's only so long that you can do that before you get pissed off at them for taking you away from what's truly important to you. And the same thing goes for the opinions of others. It's only so long that you can inject those before you begin to resent that person for taking you away from who you are and what's important to you. So really it's starting to look at what's your dialogue with yourself. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like everything's the same, who are you trying to be like? Who are you judging yourself, for? Who are you resenting? Is there somebody in your life that you're resenting? I guess in cases like this, it's often your partner who you feel like should be doing more, or, should be supporting you better, or should be not going off to work when you're stuck at home, all those things. It's starting to kind of get clear on what's that inner dialogue that's happening. They're all sort of tools that I tend to do. And if it's your job, okay, well, what is it about your job that you're not liking? What are you judging there? Because that's sometimes.
How does it serve you in your highest values?
Yeah, how does it
serve your family? How does it serve your, financial situation? How does it serve your community? So it's coming back to what are your top 3 values?
Yes.
And aligning with how does it serve you being at home with your kids for each of those? How does it serve being in your job for
and we do this quite a bit in our retreat, and we actually unpack this a lot for one particular
values.
And one participant last time who had a massive realisation because she was really conflicted with going back to work when she really wanted to be home with her child, but it was a situation where she kind of felt she had to go back. And once we created enough links for her to see the benefit to her child, or the benefit to the way she wanted to mother her child of her going back to work, she was like, okay, when do I start? She had could suddenly see how that thing that she was building up to be bad was actually really serving what was most important to her. And that's all we need sometimes, just a reset, or just to ask ourselves some quality questions to kind of dig through the kind of polarized,
because nothing is ever one way.
No,
it's never all positive and it's never all negative.
No,
it doesn't matter if you are a stay-at-home mum or a full-time working mum. There are on different spectrums but equal positives and negatives either way
in both of those situations.
Yes.
Exactly.
So how are you not seeing the negatives or not seeing the positives
in the situation that you're in?
Yes.
So that's a beautiful series of questions you can start to ask yourself around what are the benefits of me doing this too, those highest values of mine. So we invite you to join us on our retreat to delve into that more, which is coming up in March 5th and 6th. I digress. But yeah, that whole Groundhog Day, I know that I really felt it. I don't know if you ever did, but for a long time when I felt like my career wasn't serving me and I didn't feel like I wanted to do it, that Groundhog Day in the 9 to 5 daily grind can be awful.
Yes.
And I would get headaches that I got at work, and then I'd get home and off the train and they'd magically disappear. It was almost like a work headache, right? So our body is always revealing
headaches
to
for
us.
Me, did you tell me what you think? The headaches for me are such a sign of our body almost kind of throbbing to get our psyche back in alignment, to say there's something out of alignment.
Yeah, well,
here.
I think headaches are kind of like self-criticism. Self-criticism and fear, and for me definitely it was self-criticism. So I wasn't inspired at work, so I wasn't working very hard, but then I criticised myself for not working hard enough. So it was this vicious cycle where I was actually creating physical symptoms to try and wake myself up to that situation.
I love that.
It's just fascinating.
It is fascinating that we create physical symptoms to be the sledgehammer or the smack in the face that goes, wake up and pay attention to you. Yeah.
And, and whenever I find myself going down that path, because I've still got a lot of triggers, obviously having years of that in my corporate job of building that story up of it being unfulfilling or whatever I decided it was, I still get triggered on that a lot. So I have to do a lot of work around repointing my thinking and having gratitude for it and seeing the benefits and all of those things, because right now for me, it's where I need to be. You know, it serves all of my highest values beautifully. And so for me, it's about getting okay with that. And you know, I've done a lot of work and my body's responded. I don't get the headaches anymore. I'm much more inspired most of the time. You know, so it's incredible what we can do with the tools to change our own thinking, you know, and ask the right questions to help balance out our view of things. Because it doesn't have to be Groundhog Day, right? It's just about asking some quality questions and looking for the benefits and
or
things.
Or if it is, what is the purpose of you being there?
Yeah. And even because sometimes we even create that feeling of Groundhog Day to give us the fire to want to go try something else as well.
Yes, it's true.
Like sometimes we almost choose...
Serves in that way.
Yeah, like because we're very clever, right? Like our subconscious is really, really clever. We'll almost be creating that feeling of something being bad or wrong.
We almost couldn't make the decision for ourselves until we get to the point where we can't tolerate it anymore. So we're forced, in inverted commas, to make that choice or that leap.
And that's totally okay too.
Of course it is. But isn't that fascinating? And that's the universal perfection, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You're never not on purpose.
No. And you'll create what you need to create in order to reset you to the next level of learning or, you know, growth in your journey. I just love it. But not always when I'm in it. You know?
I totally know.
Not always when it's, oh shit, it's another day of XYZ.
No one said growth was ever easy or necessarily enjoyable. It's often the pain and the hard shit and the struggle which produces or yields the gold, right?
That's it, totally. Sometimes I think too that Groundhog Day, that sense of feeling like nothing's changing, can also be a form of self-criticism where we're almost judging ourselves as not being enough or not doing enough.
We're not productive enough, we're not going far enough, what are we doing with our lives?
Yep, all of that. So kind of that downward spiral. And I've really been judging myself a bit on that lately because I've kind of lost my mojo and I was so gung-ho about having my to-do lists and my goals and chipping away at them, but I found myself settling into a little bit more laziness. Now, you know, you mentioned before, and we talked about this a lot in our podcast, the idea of there being equal benefits and drawbacks in every situation.
Yeah.
So I've been doing some activities as part of a learning group that I'm in around looking at those kinds of tools every day. So asking yourself quality questions every day to balance out your perceptions. So what I did today was looking at the benefits and drawbacks of being lazy, because I've been judging myself for being lazy and not focusing on all the things I mentioned, like my to-do list, growing my business, all those things. Anyway, so I stacked up all these benefits and drawbacks and started to get the gold. And I started crying because I was like, oh my God, I get it, right? So one of my lazy acts for today was to sit down and watch a movie with my son, something that I've never given myself permission to do in full, right? Because there's always so much else that needs to be done. And we watched Mary Poppins. And in the story, Mr. Banks is an uptight businessman with no time for family, seeing business and family as mutually exclusive, children to be seen and not heard, and a household to be ordered and run with precision, with no time for nonsense. Mary Poppins helps him to see that he can have fun, be with his family, and also be effective in business. That there is no one way of being. I can see that there are moments when I am like Mr. Banks, so I've got a short fuse, I've got a single focus on my work and my business. And there's times when I'm silly and fun like Mary Poppins. We can all be both. We are all both, and each of them serve. And that was the most profound realization for me, because that's absolutely where my head's been at. You know, how can I be this businesswoman and this kind of have this constant, well of creativity that I can tap into?
Thriving entrepreneurial woman.
Yeah,
while sitting on the couch watching a movie.
Yeah, that's it, right? And have the openness and presence for my son. And this film was showing me exactly what I needed to realise myself.
I absolutely think that is gold, because I've never dissected that movie that way, but I love it.
But it wasn't until I begun to ask myself the questions to see that was the truth. That was my truth, that I needed to almost see that movie and perceive that movie in that way to get the lesson.
So what are the benefits and the drawbacks of laziness?
Yeah.
And what are the benefits and drawbacks of your lazy, in inverted commas, acts?
Yes.
Yes.
And so I can see, and somebody commented on that in this group, that in fact, that could have been more beneficial to growing my business than the to-do list.
Right, and this is what we talk about with even filling our pleasure cups.
Yes.
Is spending the quality time to put back in, or for you doing something that you're perceiving as being non-productive. how does that actually
serve? Wow.
How does that make you more productive or give you more insight or more empathy or, you know, look at a situation or the world differently that then produces all of these, you know, offshoot ripples that otherwise would not have occurred?
Because the truth is, you saying that it doesn't is just your judgment from a very narrow view of things. And perhaps it's often a societal projection. So, you know, there's maybe a long-held view that, you know, those things are indulgent and, you know, there's not, you know, you can't possibly be doing that if you've got work to do. And so those are just opinions that we take from, you know, mainstream media or, you know, long-held wisdom in inverted commas that we start to internalise and stop ourselves from doing. But in fact, those things could be the exact way to our well of inspiration, the exact way to the conduit for our connection with our children. But yeah, we haven't allowed ourselves to see them that way.
It's about expanding what creativity is.
Yeah.
It's kind of a different way of doing life as it is in doing business. So we're seeing radical business change through Google and, I don't know, whoever else is doing amazing stuff out there.
Yeah.
And they're looking at how do you tap into people's inspiration, joy and creativity is through things that seem, in inverted commas, unproductive.
Yeah, or too indulgent or silly.
Yes.
I love that. I love that way of looking at things and continuing to ask yourself, you know, to challenge yourself. Okay, I'm thinking about this as this way. How could I ask myself some questions and perhaps change my thinking to also see the other way that it could be? You know, and that's a great gift to give our kids as well. The more that we can start to challenge our own ideas and be willing to change our mind on the way we might have seen things, it gives them the power to also trust their own intuition and their own learning and growth. What's your experience of that been as you've started to, you know, ask yourself some different questions and try different things?
Look, I really love this line of questioning that I think I've really worked quite hardcore on with you and having you in my life and certainly doing this podcast. But I suppose for me it is looking at how do I actually tap into my well of inspiration and when am I most productive? And I'm most productive when I'm in flow, when I'm feeling inspired, when I have that surge of emotion that seems to just, you know, bliss out of my heart and I can, you know, knock out a blog post in 5 minutes that I could sit there when I have to and it's work time and could take me 4 hours to do. So it's about how we flip what productivity is.
Yeah.
How do you flip, you know, and I now make creativity an actionable time. You know how I talked about when we get up early, I make that time slot creative. And when I'm having my lunch break, I make that creative time for thinking, for, you know, sorting out what my next steps or leaps or ideas are, or for writing a blog post, because there are times when I can be so much more productive when I'm able to tap into those feelings of inspiration. But I only get to that well of inspiration and well of overfilling joy when I allow myself the space and the love to be nourished.
Yes, and be willing to say yes to those things, because I think immediately, which means I need to do work around this, immediately I'd be feeling like, oh, but that's, you know, how can I do that if I've got to look after the kids or, you know, but it's seeing how you're doing that.
Yes, so you did it, exactly.
Yeah, but seeing how you're doing that serves them.
Yes.
Because your judgment on that being wrong for them or not fair or, you know, taking away from your time with them, it's not seeing the full picture. It's not seeing how you doing that task benefits them.
Yes.
Because there are benefits. It's just that we're not always seeing them.
So I guess Groundhog Day for me seems to be when you're talking about linking what the themes are. You know how you were saying if Groundhog Day is repeating often, what's the common theme there, and seeing what the message is behind what that common theme is. Well, for me, being an entrepreneurial woman and wanting family and stay-at-home mum to be, you know, a top priority / main focus, it's that I'm not enough / I'm not providing enough financially for my family. So that for me is a massive trigger. And I mean, we're going to do a podcast on money blocks, which is a separate issue, but let's just come back to the fact that financial growth or success for me, I have somehow intangibly entwined with self-worth / how productive I am.
Yeah.
So even though I entirely value the role of stay-at-home mum, and whilst I'm working on building a business that can possibly, you know, be my sense of joy, inspiration and so on and so forth, and fulfill my family's needs in so many other ways in the future, when I'm living the day-to-day to that, I can get quite frustrated and stuck in it. And I was saying to you when we were at the beach together the other day, I had an epiphany moment where I went, oh my God, okay, so I'm not earning money, but fuck, this is my workplace. I am at this heaven-sent beach with my 3 beautiful, healthy children all day.
That's just
loving them up. So where is the wealth?
Yes, because that's the reality, right? So we all have wealth. It just might not be in the monetary form that we're seeking to recognise it. And I think that whole thing about not valuing ourselves in motherhood, or judging that as not, and I do this too, judging that as not as worthy enough for success as going out and bringing home the bacon, is such a deeply and firmly entrenched way of thinking for women in our psyche. I was only having this same conversation with another friend who's working so hard in her business and hustling so hard, but still isn't really bringing in a lot, and she's feeling so judged by her partner around her not bringing money in. But her perception of him judging her is her judging her. Judging her.
Yeah.
And so you talking about, your perception in that conversation that we had.
My perception is I'm not worthy enough because I'm not bringing enough to the table.
Yeah. But it's like, oh my gosh, I see how much you bring to the table in terms of all of this stuff that we talk around. In terms of emotional resilience, emotional intelligence, the time that you spend with your children, in terms of grounding them in the world, like that is such a gift, and I think you can't even put a price on that stuff, right? But it's all about values. Like, that's you not valuing that enough as contributing to your family. If you didn't do that, how much would that take away from your family if you weren't there to provide that role? Because I think sometimes as mothers we can negate our role,
our worth,
and sense that we'd be better off at a job earning money, which there might be more money in the bank account, but how would the family be? Where would the wealth
move to?
Because it's always changing form. So I think for a lot of us it's asking that hard question, well, because every decision is deciding against something else, right? So a decision to go out into the world and work really hard and earn monetary wealth can take away from family wealth and the wealth in relationships. And sure, you can do both, but it's an art. It's an art to do both of those things well, and well enough to your own standards. And so I think it's with any decision we make, there's a trade-off and a decision against something else, and it's about, okay, for you, I can totally see that as soon as you started to look at the alternatives, you wouldn't want them.
No, that's the thing, isn't it? We can look at, Sally Joe down the corner is, bringing home $1,500 a week, and she's just bought a new car and done this house reno, and that looks fantastic, and that's what I should be doing. But the thing is, she's not at home. She doesn't see her kids. She misses the productions. She doesn't have downtime. She's running from one job during the day to a night job of parenting to, would I trade my lack of financial abundance now for that? And it's about looking at, it's never just bliss, the pasture's always greener, because there is as many drawbacks, just they're in a different form, isn't it? So I'm still doing a lot of work around working out or seeing and valuing that role again. I feel like I'm constantly peeling back those layers. So I really appreciate the time we spend
I think, as I have another child too, I'll be right back there again going, okay, who am I now? I don't have this, job title that defines me, and I've identified with that for 10 years, so who am,
And if I'm not that, what am I?
Yes. And I think I've done a lot more work on that since I last had to confront that, but I think it's so deeply entrenched in so many women, and I almost, then again, I do see some women who seem to cope with it better and seem to be much more comfortable with where they're at and in making the decision for, say, 5 years to be just about the children. But I've always struggled with that, that's my own conditioning and my own belief systems that are asking me to challenge them, right? Because it's just a belief system. But I'm like you, I compare the person who does work the intense 5 days a week job and is obviously kicking it in their career, but that does take away from something else. And for me, in my value set, I'm not
willing to trade that.
I'm not. I'm just not. Yeah. And there'll be financial repercussions for that. There'll be career development repercussions for that. But
where is there growth as much as there's lack? It's about redefining where that is, because we're never without, right, is what you're always saying. It just changes form.
And I think, when we can have gratitude for exactly where we're at and have peace with our decisions, because they are decisions that we're making, whether we're making them consciously or unconsciously, having gratitude for that then can allow us to tap into a well of inspiration and choose our own way. Like you and I are both doing, kind of carving out businesses that call to our soul, carving out a place in the world for our inspiration to flourish. And that's what I would love for everyone, for all of us to be able to tap into what is our kind of You know, what
I love
moves
this
us.
because we're all individually passionate about individual things.
We are.
And that is where our skill set and our art form and our love and our lust for life lies. How extraordinary would this world be if we all lived in our
If everyone
lust?
could tap into that.
Yes.
And, you know, we only have the courage to tap into that when we are willing to fail, when we're willing to confront our fears, when we're willing to challenge our beliefs. You know, and those things take work. You know, those things require us
just
to...
happen.
No, they don't. You know, and I mean, the universe is always pushing us to grow, so we're going to be forced to grow somehow. But I kind of like the idea of choosing my growth, if I can. You know, choosing to navigate those like bits that I'm uncomfortable with myself.
By looking at them and breaking them down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, by understanding what's in them and, you know, how can I break through that to go to the next level of challenge, you know, and growth.
Love it, Bridgie. So if you would like to come to our retreat, if you'd really like to do some deep work on yourself to really shift where you're at, to move Groundhog Day into something more inspirational and aligned with who you are and where you're headed, please come to our retreat, and you can have information for that on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/nourishing the mother. Our retreat is March 5th and 6th. There's only 3 tickets left at the moment, so if you are thinking about it, do dive in. It could be a Christmas present, a birthday present, or just because you need to be refilled.
Yes, absolutely.
Or have some new resources. Now, if you want to connect with Bridget, it's at suburbansandcastles.com. And your movie is?
Yeah, so I think it's this week we're recording a couple of weeks out. So it's this week, 17th of February, and it's Most Likely to Succeed. So it's looking at the education system and how we can evolve education and transform it to really cultivate creativity, to almost get our children to cultivate that well of inspiration that we often as adults have lost connection with. How do we almost cultivate that so that we don't have to lose connection with it and we can tap into that and, I guess, manifest our own individual creativity into the world?
Which is what we're talking about, finding your bliss, isn't it? Do you have guest speakers lined up for that
We
yet?
do. We're still kind of locking them in, so I can't announce those yet. But
excited. Your guest speakers at the end of your movies are always exciting.
But do check out the website because the website will be updated. So
Sure. And if you want to connect with me, it's thepleasurenutritionist.com. So please rate us on iTunes. Please comment on Facebook. We love topics or conversations or something you need to know more about, and seeing how our ripples are flying out there in the world to create your ripples.
Love it.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
We hope you enjoyed this Wellness Couch podcast brought to you by Audible. Do you find that you just don't have time to read all the awesome books that you hear mentioned on the Wellness Couch? Well, Audible might just have the answer. Audible is offering the Wellness Couch listeners a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You can get books like Eat Right for Your Blood Type, Why We Get Fat by Gary Taubes, Paleo Diet for Athletes, or even The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. So to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/The Wellness Couch. Again, that's audibletrial.com/The Wellness Couch for your free audiobook.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.